Imagine standing before a roaring crowd tied on a stake, burning flames leaking at your feet, ready to be burnt alive, and being asked one final time to renounce your faith, knowing surely that an answer to that question determines whether you live or you die. What would you do? Well, this is the story of Polycarp, the 86-year-old bishop who chose death over denial, leaving a legacy that has echoed throughout the ages. What can we learn from him? Let's dive right in. It was around the year 168 AD in the city of Smyrna, which is modern-day Turkey, and the Roman Empire was ruling with brutal efficiency. The Caesar was more than just a ruler. To many, he was a god, and every citizen was required to worship and burn incense to the god that they all were required to worship. All it took was just a pinch of powder and a few words of loyalty, and you were considered a good citizen. But the Christians refused. They would not compromise the teachings of their Lord Jesus Christ. And when the Romans were looking for who to make an example of, they found him. You guessed it right, Polycarp. Polycarp, the great bishop of the church in Smyrna, a man who sat at the feet of the Apostle John, yes, personally being ordained by him. The church in Smyrna, it is important to note that it is among the 7 churches that Jesus Christ sends later to through the Apostle John in his revelation, and he praises them for their faith despite the persecutions that were coming ahead. Polycarp had known that this day would surely come. He even had a dream about it. And in his dream, the pillow that he was laying his head on was burning, consumed with fire. It disappeared, indicating the kind of death, the kind of fate that was awaiting him a few days to come. So when the Roman soldiers finally arrived to the house that he was hiding, he didn't flee. Actually, he welcomed them. He served them food and drinks, but he just gave them only one request: allow me to go in the next room and say my prayers, which they also allowed him to do. While he was there, they were moved to heart. Why are we arresting such an old man? One of them asked. But as it was, unfortunately, the order had come from above. So after his prayer, they bound him, put him on a horse, and walked down to the city, to the theater where he would be burnt alive on a stake. Not knowing that the man they were walking with, his courage would echo throughout history. So the amphitheater was already filled with roars and crowds and chants. Rumors of the Christian leader's arrest had spread very quickly, and before you knew it, the entire theater was filled with spectators of Christian persecutions. This was no ordinary man. He was actually the last living connection to the apostles. And amidst the crowds, the Roman governor stood up and shouted, saying, "Respect your old age. Swear by the Caesar and say, away with the atheists." And upon this, Polycarp raised up his hands and gestured towards the roaring mob and said calmly, "Away with the atheists." They were stunned. He had just called them the unbelievers. So according to them, the Christians were looked at as the atheists because they were saying there is only one God. And in the Roman culture, there were many gods. Each house actually had its own gods. And to them, the Christians were the atheists. And now they stand at what Polycarp had just told them, that they were the unbelievers. So with a lot of anger, the Roman governor gritted his teeth and told Polycarp, "Swear, curse Jesus, and I will let you go." Polycarp turned to him and gently told him these words that were ringing like bells. 86 years have I served him, and he had never done me wrong. How then can I blaspheme my king who saved me? And that was it. That was the last nail in the coffin. So with a lot of force, they quick rushed him to the center of the theater. A stake was raised where he would be nailed and later on burnt as well. And when the soldiers came toward Polycarp to nail him, Polycarp calmly told them, "Leave me as I am." The one who gives me strength will help me endure the flames. And they did just like that, only they tied his hands behind his back, and there the flames started. Expecting him to be burnt and consumed, something strange happened. Eyewitnesses wrote saying that the fire wouldn't burn him. Instead, they formed a circle around him like a sail filled with wind, making an arc around his body. And the smell that was produced, it wasn't the smell of burning flesh, but it was actually sweet smelling like incense or, surprisingly, freshly baked bread. And of course, when the soldiers saw that they wouldn't kill him by the fire, they got a sword and quickly pierced him by his side. And we're told that a lot of blood came out that actually extinguished the fire. And that was the death of Polycarp. And after his death, the Christians gathered up what had remained of him. To the Romans, he had died a criminal, but to them, he was a hero. He was a martyr, a living example of a faith that could not be consumed. And every year they gathered, not to grieve, but to celebrate, because he had not been defeated. But like the Lord himself saying that I have overcome the world, Polycarp had also overcome the world. So Polycarp's story is more than just history. It is a mirror. It poses a question for us, that when your faith is tested, when the world demands your loyalty, when your faith is going to cost you everything and the fires are lit, what will you do? Will you stand? Will you stand and say like Polycarp, that how can I blaspheme the one who saved me? He who seeks to save his life shall lose it, but he who loses his life for my sake shall gain it. I hope you think about the implication of the Lord's teachings in the scriptures. Thank you so much for watching, and I call upon you to like, comment, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.